Welcome everybody, Friday Bits and Bobs. Happy to say Conan O'Doherty is here in the studio. Hello, sir.
Hello.
And after a month away, a sojourn in Colombia, of all places, Ronan Mullen is a sight for sore eyes. Hello.
Hi, Joe.
Got the shakes there? You okay?
I'm getting there. It's my return to play protocol or whatever you call it. So Bits and Bobs is not a bad one to land back in.
Don't over-egg it. 11 times in the last 24 hours, Ronan said, no, we don't need to do Bits and Bobs. Because we recorded a piece with Paul McGinley, which we're going to do it next week instead. But Ronan said, we don't have to do Bits and Bobs today. Never has a man been so desperate not to return to air, but here you are.
I want to give the listeners justice. You know, someone who's watched sports sparingly in the last few weeks, I didn't feel like potentially I was best rostered for this outing. But Will has gone to Cork for an evening with Roy Keane.
Yes.
So he's out of commission.
And
Conan has kindly made his way in.
And Roddy Doyle.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So now I'm stepping up.
Well, you're very welcome back.
Thanks a million.
Nobody wants to hear you talk about your trip.
Nah.
Too much.
Yeah, no beads or anything? No, nothing.
Yeah.
No. Well, coffee beans have made their way back.
One thing you said to me about Colombia, which I don't really associate with Colombia, you were talking about the various parts of your trip, and you said, for the last section we went down to the Caribbean. Caribbean? Are you a Caribbean or Caribbean?
What is the correct pronunciation in this part of the world? I think I like navigate between both, but Caribbean?
I wouldn't associate Colombia with the Caribbean. But you said it's a beautiful stretch of the country.
Yeah, once you get down to that coastal part, it is very much like what you would picture in your head. But I think we would have done the more classical South American vibe for the predominantly through the trip, and then that was kind of the last little bit down towards Ronan National Park, which is basically a run of beaches with like a jungle walk through and a horse ride back. So I was like, on what was a weekday, I was probably thinking, what would I be doing if I was in work at this time?
Did you put up on Instagram, office for today?
I'm not on Instagram, so I was like, I left that to my better half. But then, then you get to the beaches and stuff, and then Santa Marta and the port cities and stuff. So it was lovely.
Yeah, no, cool place to go and spend a month in.
Yeah, well, it's the second week in June I went. It just feels longer, Joe, because I was in Munich the week before that.
Okay. Well, you're welcome back. We have a live show to tell you about August 6th at Vicar Street, which you're all very welcome to come along to. So it's kind of a Premier League kicking off. Sky Sports sponsor our football show coverage kind of a thing. So we have some, a great guest coming over. Some of our regulars will be there as well. So it should be a really good show. Ticketmaster is where you can get tickets. Just search Indo Sport and you'll find us there. So that's August 6th, Vicar Street. We'll reveal guests next week. Just a little T&C to cross.
Yeah.
It's all good. It's all good. So August 6th, Vicar Street, which is always great venue.
The most important guests, Joe, are the listeners.
Well, indeed.
So I want to see them there.
Yes. So this weekend, it's all going on. All-Ireland Hurling semi-final weekend. There's going to be a sellout for Cork Dublin. Wimbledon is up and running. Lions play. Paul O'Connell's Ireland play. Ladies Football Championship quarter-final stages. Tour de France starts in Lille, amongst other things. So that's what's going on over the weekend. In news, League of Ireland obviously as well happening. Joey O'Brien confirmed as Shelbourne manager in the wake of Damien Duff's departure, 39 years of age. Been at Duff's side all the way through, so he's been given the job. One of the few podcasts you listen to, you said, when you're in Duffer.
So I saw a few bits and pieces, but the one I had to...
Bob's even.
The one I had...
Honestly.
Copyright infringement. I was like, at one point in the trip, I saw the Duff thing. I was like, okay, I actually need a little bit of time. Just let me listen to this.
An hour.
I needed to... Dan McDonald got me back up to speed.
It's sad news.
Yeah, it's staggering. And I feel like, I can't remember who volunteered this premise, but that's what I felt when I was listening to it, was that it was like in the passion of the moment, he just quit. And I'm sure like by midweek at the latest, he was like, Jesus, is this too embarrassing? Should I just go full George Costanza and just walk back in? Like, what are you talking about? I never quit. Mad.
Yeah.
I think his first interview is going to be so interesting. Like his first public declarations, wherever they are, going to be really interesting.
Mm. Well, Joey O'Brien's in, so we'll see how it goes. The Bohemians Oasis jersey. Obviously, lots of managers asked about Oasis. Stephen Kenny included. The Stone Roses are better. I'm much more influenced, he said. Influenced! I'm much more influenced by the Stone Roses than Oasis. But Oasis are good. They're okay. But I prefer the Stone Roses.
He didn't need to bite a second time there, did he?
He had 2 bites. Influenced. Like a secret band. You sent me I guess the point to mention again, this was in Business Plus. Chris Lambert, the COO at Bohs. Amazing turnaround here. So, in short, in 2014, which is really not that long ago, from merchandise, Bohemians made 100 grand a year. Last year, they made 2 million merchandise. I mean, you can roll your. I know you're an eye roller. You are.
In our.
It's a marketing company with a football club. You're one of those.
That might have been exactly what I said.
Yeah.
But then I did follow up and say it's actually hard to be too snarky, despite my best will as someone from Dundalk.
You can't argue with that.
I can't argue with that, and like they're actually performing on the field as well.
And there's a charitable component.
Yeah, so
doesn't need to be.
They're actually a pin-up for a remarkably well-run club, not just in Ireland but anywhere. Like if anyone had this sort of commercial potency, you know, it's actually incredible, what they're doing.
Yeah. So like, their entire turnover, like everything else, you know, they make 4.5 million per year. So 2 million of that is just on this merchandise now.
Well, football clubs are supposed to be marketing like ventures as well. Like they're supposed to make loads of money. It's why United are bulletproof, because no matter how much money they splash, they're going to just end up making loads of money as well. And it's not like it doesn't impact the football side of things. And the more money Bohs make, the better it is for the football side of it.
Like, I mean, Mossy Quinn and recently, Shells are losing somewhere between $750,000 and $1 million a year.
Yeah.
You know, it's just that's been written off and benefactors stepping in effect. So that's no way to survive. So. Yeah.
But most importantly, like Stephen Kenny doesn't need to say that about Stone Roses and Oasis. Like
he doesn't need to say that.
I love Stone Roses. I'm a Stone Roses fan, but you can't, after 2 albums, you can't just declare that they're better.
They had more of an influence on him.
I think even Oasis would admit the Stone Roses are better. Like I think they revere them to such an extent.
They might say that album was better. The first album, obviously, we're talking about. We'll leave the second coming for another day. Okay. But you can't say the Oasis are worse than Stone Roses as a collective.
Well, he said it, and twice, I think. Oasis are good. They're okay.
Yeah.
Clarified the good.
The thing about Bohs, though, it's like on the eye roll point, because I'm sure there is a huge cohort who still are very much in that camp of thinking all this stuff is ridiculous. But even the stuff they do, which could be perceived to have not have worked, gets them attention. You know, I think...
Such as?
You know, like, jerseys that came and went where you're like, oh, that's...
Dublin Bus.
The Dublin Bus is like, oh, it had a bit of currency for a couple of days, but nobody was thinking about it like the following week. I think some clubs are maybe too pious or sanctimonious to even try stuff like that. So I really admire the chutzpah to actually have a crack at it.
Okay. Won't dwell on Diogo Jota, but obviously it's just kind of so in the ether. And tributes continue. Wake today, I think. Funeral over the weekend. You just can't imagine. I mean, I just don't want to see the images of his family. It's just so awful. Caoimhín Kelleher was amongst those paying tribute. I saw today because his photograph of them at the wedding together. Blessed, grateful to have seen you on your happiest day. Gonna hurt for a long time. Gonna miss you so much. I feel so lucky to have got to know you and to have had such a good friend. Love you, Diogo. Van Dyke, total disbelief. A lot of total disbeliefs in there. Andy Robertson penned a beautiful one because it was so natural. Yeah. You know, he wrote this himself, and worth looking up. I won't read it all out, but the gist of it was he was talking because none of us know that much about Diogo Jota. He's an under the radar guy. So actually, Robertson's tribute, I think, informed a lot of people a bit more about the personality, the most British foreign player in the team. There's a kind of parallel with Didi Hamann almost, whereby they were, watch the darts and Cheltenham together, and he nicknamed him Diogo Mick Jota, claiming he was Scottish, that kind of stuff. So Robertson kind of brought him to life a little bit, actually. It's just so senseless, because Klopp obviously released a statement saying there must be a bigger picture here. I'm failing to see it right now. I don't suspect he'll ever see it. It's completely senseless. It's awful.
Yeah, and Robertson had that lovely line at the end, something like "Thanks for making my life better," as well. Heartbreaking.
Yeah. So. Yeah, horrendous. Just further confirmation, lest you need it, that we are a doomed species. It's the 4th of July. Next year is 250-year anniversary of American independence, and we have this to look forward to.
So every one of our national park, battlefields, and historic sites are going to have special events in honor of America 250, and I even think we're going to have a UFC fight. We're going to have, does anybody watch UFC, the Great Day in the World? We're going to have a UFC fight. We're going to have a UFC fight. Think of this, on the grounds of the White House. We have a lot of land there. We're going to build a little, we're not, Dana's going to do it. Dana's great, one of a kind. We're going to have a UFC fight, championship fight, full fight, like 20, 25,000 people. And we're going to do that as part of 250 also. We're going to have some incredible events, some professional events, some amateur events, but the UFC fight's going to be a big deal too.
Someone in the Bohemians office thinking, that's the kind of blue sky ideas that I approve.
No
there
such
you
thing
go.
as a bad idea.
I don't know if this feels like the most appropriate way to celebrate 250, but these are the times that we're living in.
Even calling it America 250 sounds like a UFC event.
I know, it really does.
Yeah.
America 250, PPV.
Adam, our sound engineer, said it should be called the Fight House, and it's hard to argue with that.
It's good.
You should copyright that post haste.
So good. Yeah. So there you go. That's I don't know. Oh, jeez. McGregor.
Michael Buffer at the White House next year.
McGregor's going to be front and center. It's going to be gross.
Security will love that in the White House.
In some ways, it's the most fitting
Yeah.
representation of what's like. And as Shane mentioned, the World Cup is going to be on when this anniversary happens. So, they really are, all the eyes of the world are going to be on them. So what they do with this, like some anniversaries come and go, but I feel like people will be plugged into this.
Yeah. Okay, health warning if there are children in the car or if you may be affected by the George Gibney case for obvious reasons, just to choose judiciously if you want to continue or hit pause or listen another time. This will not be graphic by any means, but obviously it's very triggering and upsetting for people. So kind of remarkable developments here in the George Gibney case. Everybody's generally au fait with the Gibney story, I think, in this country at this stage. Trojan Swimming Club, Irish national swimming coach, and just, a litany of allegations against him. Now, what's happened this week is that he was arrested in Florida by US Marshals because the Irish authorities have applied for his extradition. They applied last October via the Irish Embassy in Washington. And so what's going to happen now is there will be a court appearance in Florida, and George Gibney will either accede to his extradition or he will contest it. No early word on whether he'll accede or contest it just yet. And I, maybe we should do a piece in this next week, how likely he would be to win it if he did contest it. So with Gibney, there are different eras to his pursuit. So this most recent one stems from the Where is George Gibney podcast from Mark Horgan and Kieran Cassidy. But obviously with Gibney, this goes all the way back to late 80s, early 90s when Gary O'Toole, is such a hero of this story, obviously. He set the wheels in motion, that first big effort to bring Gibney to justice when he was on a flight. O'Toole himself never abused, but a fellow swimmer confided in him about his experience at the hands of Gibney, and Gary O'Toole said about finding other victims, and the famous letter within the letters which went around to different people, and if you know what this is about, open the next letter, and he found people, and the wheels were set in motion, and Gibney appeared in court in 1993, 27 counts of indecency, carnal knowledge against him. But crucially, in 1994, he won a High Court judicial review, and that basically prohibited the DPP from pressing ahead with the case against him. The High Court ruled the allegations were too old, many details too vague to proceed. And so basically, that put all of that to bed. You couldn't retry him on any of those allegations. He was out the gap, and he did get out the gap. He got to Scotland allegations surfaced around him there. And then 1995, still kind of a question mark as to how he got citizenship and what happened there. But he got to the US in 95. And like I said, High Court decision meant couldn't be retried on those charges. Like, it's quite interesting. His timing, from his point of view, was very good because in the 90s at that time, that was sort of the way it was done. But given the awful dark history of child abuse in this country, it became more common in the 90s for successful convictions on historical events. And it became more common as well for even just the testimony of a victim to result in a successful conviction. So that became a more normal thing in Irish law. But Gibney, just, like I said, his timing was good in 93, 94 territory. And so it kind of just continued on in a really unsatisfactory way. Different politicians would raise it at times. Different journalists would write about it quite a lot. Like, it was just this great sense of unfulfilled justice for so many people. And then, Where is George Gibney podcast happened. Mark Corrigan, Kieran Cassidy, and 4 alleged victims listened, and they came forward for the first time. So a new set of charges. They don't fall under the umbrella of that High Court ruling back in the 90s. New charges of allegations between 1971 and 1981. And so a file was sent to the DPP, and now extradition. Conor Lally was reporting, had seen documents relating to the case, and it fits into the pattern of allegations against Gibney. 4 victims abused, often weekly, different locations, between the ages of 8 years old and 14 years old. So, just the stuff of nightmares, really. So these new allegations, don't fall under that High Court ruling in the 90s. And so here we are. I mean, for Mark Corrigan, Kieran Cassidy, everyone involved in that work, I mean, it's kind of, you just couldn't imagine the effect it was going to have. So it's really kind of an extraordinary development. I think one that people had probably given up on. And I like I said, I don't know the likelihood or not now of extradition if he contests it, and on we go. But there is the potential here for a remarkable finale to the Gibney saga.
Yeah, I think any language I use around this is trying to do so advisedly, because it's obviously tricky. But I think, as you said, and it kind of feeds into the High Court ruling in the sense of when it happened and how we perceive that now, that those things were viewed as historical and old and vague. The thing that podcast did, the BBC Sounds with Mark and Kieran, was it made them not that. They were not vague. They were no longer historical. They were contemporary. They were in your ears, fresh in the 21st century. It kept the thing alive. And what had become a dormant case was no longer in the eyes of the public. And the legality has since followed. And it's just a staggering development now. Like, it's just, come what may, this is reeling in the ear stuff. Like, this is monumental.
So we'll obviously cover this as it develops. I don't quite know when that extradition hearing is in Florida. Gibney currently still in custody, so I presume they can't keep him there ad infinitum, so presumably soon enough. And we'll be all over it, as everyone will, I'm sure. And the Indo Daily, I just saw it today, they've an episode out around this. Chalky White, obviously people would know Chalky, alleged victim. Swimmer himself, and one of those with a story to tell, is on the Indo Daily this week. If you want to have a listen to that, it's a very good listen. So that's Gibney. Serious week, really. The other big story of the week in many people's eyes is DJ Carey. So again, not for as long, but a little bit akin to the Gibney case. People have been aware of this this has been bubbling away in the background for some time, and now it's reached something of a conclusion. So basically, DJ Carey was in court this week, and he had been due to stand trial, and they were getting ready to go to trial. There were 28 witnesses lined up. There was talk of a 4-week trial. I mean, this thing would have become just like a media circus, to say the least, a 4-week trial. But now there is no need for a jury because DJ Carey has pleaded guilty to 10 counts of defrauding quite a number of people. 54 years of age, 5-time All-Ireland winner, 9 All-Stars. We don't need to introduce DJ Carey on this podcast. So the deception happened between 2014 and 2022. A range of people, like I said, Dennis O'Brien, the former Clare hurler Tony Griffin. Noel Tynan was on the front page of the paper yesterday, runs the Kelp Bar here in Dublin. He gave €10,000 to DJ Carey, just got a phone call from him, talked about cancer, need money for treatment, felt sorry for him, gave the €10,000 to him. So, sentenced in October is the situation now. He's out on bail. So it's just like extraordinary kind of fall from grace. Like even this week, and it's been published in media outlets now, the photo is kind of everywhere of, well, I guess the intention is to make it look like he's in a bed, hospital bed or otherwise, not looking well, and has tubes up his nose. And the more you look at it, the more apparent it becomes that this looks very much like an iPhone cable. So there's kind of like a farcical aspect to the thing, you know.
Yeah, I think that's almost like, not a byword, but it's like word association. If you talk about DJ Carey in these terms, people think of that photograph, which has obviously been widely circulated prior to this week.
Yeah.
But it's only when it gets to this nth degree of the legal proceedings where you realise there's victims at play, and there was malice aforethought of some level. So, yeah, it's just like a Irish sports person who's renowned is like almost without peer in certain ways. Like he transcended hurling, he transcended Irish sport. Like he was a name that people knew, and that this is the prism through which people know him now is stark.
Yeah. Amy Malloy had a piece in the paper just kind of charting a few of the kind of controversies, maybe too strong a word, but around Carey. Like there's I guess it's kind of become an infamous radio interview now with Ray Darcy from 10 odd years ago. And in that, like he had talked about being over in America for treatment, didn't talk about cancer necessarily, but I think Ray brought up Noel McGrath, who'd had testicular cancer, and Carey was, talking about it like as a fellow sufferer. And, he's saying things like, because in this it was like, you look really well, and yeah, I'm doing well, and things are good, health-wise. But he's saying things like, you can beat these things with good, positive thinking. Not everyone can do it. Lifestyle helps. I don't eat sugar anymore. I've changed a huge amount. So, it's kind of fed into the scam, really, the fraud. But in that piece, Amy Malloy had other details just on different things. Like there were certain controversies, small-ish things, like he built his house without correct planning permission. And then when he was going to sell the house, he had to apply to Kilkenny County Council, and they granted him with retention rights when that all emerged, that he had built it without the correct planning permission. And then, there was controversy over the extent of the write-down of his loans with AIB. So 2017, this is on foot of the crash. So he has debts with AIB of €9.5 million. And they were written down to €60,000, settlement of 60,000. Now, there was then sale of properties as part of that. So I think in all told, it was an 80% write-down. But like at the time, this was talked about by government ministers and opposition politicians saying AIB need to come in before Oireachtas and explain the extent of this write-down or agreement, So that he's kind of always been, and then, his private life, and obviously in the morning of an All-Ireland final, it was reported in the Sunday Independent that his marriage was breaking up. That was kind of a big thing at the time, and Carey wasn't happy about it. And then subsequent relationship, high profile. So he's always kind of been there in different aspects of his life on show. But that this was all going on between 2014 and 22 is just, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing, isn't it? Like the people obviously were sincerely affected by health issues, and positive thinking wasn't helping them, and people were obviously suffering during the crash, and they weren't getting write-downs, and like that's the real smack in the face. And you're right to use the word farcical with that photo, because it is sort of easy to forget, because sometimes not even that photo appears, that people are having a bit of a laugh about it. It's like because even I remember when it emerged, there was a bit of, that doesn't look like a hospital bed, but I don't think anybody went as far as thinking there's something bigger at play here. And then obviously, as Ronan says, when you line out all the people that are suffering or being victims of this, it's not good.
Yeah, so look, his legal team said he has genuinely significant health issues at the moment. I know there's a certain irony in people kind of, stifling laughs at that, but heart surgery last summer and, talk of mental health issues. So, like, it's sure there's a lot going on. So, yeah, October sentencing, and I guess we'll see what happens. Not much more you can say about it at the moment. So they're kind of heavier aspects to the week that was. To move away from that, two quick things to throw your way. I think I'll finish on Owen. You'll both approve of this. We'll all approve of this. Pat Ryan and his attitude to dummy teams. So Cork Dublin are playing at Croke Park on Saturday. And, they're very upfront. Like Cormac O'Brien has emerged as a doubt. They're not holding that information back. They're just naming the team. There's no dummy teams. And so Pat Ryan was talking about dummy teams in the GAA. I don't believe in pulling strokes. We'll turn up. We'll man up. We'll go at you. We'll leave the opposition do the same to us. And he was saying as well, like, the notion that, they named the guy at centre forward. Well, they've switched him last minute. It's like, if we haven't talked about that during the week and several other possibilities, then we're not doing our job. So they have no effect against us either. And he made another good point, I think, about the toll it takes on certain players if they're lying about, oh no, I'm playing, and deep down they're heartbroken. They're not playing. No, yeah, I'm playing. I am. I don't want to be telling players, don't say this to anyone or don't say that to anyone. They have to come home. They have to tell their mum and their dad, you're playing, you're not playing, your friends, you're getting texts. That only puts more pressure on them for the following week. So, Pat Ryan, we salute you. This is the way forward.
It's amazing. And I still don't understand why this hasn't been fixed from on high. Like, I thought it was being fixed this year with the name and the squad, but it turns out you can still change your squad. Like, I don't understand why it would be so hard to just name your 26 players on Thursday, and that's it.
But then they might still switch who's on the bench.
But right now you can bring people who aren't in the 26, drop them in on match day.
All right.
So even, talking about the players, obviously individually that's tough for them, but from a club point of view this year as well, we would have seen some players in the Scaries team on the Dublin bench. It's like, oh great. And then it comes to match day and they're not actually on the bench. Okay. And the whole club are excited and behind that and thinking this is brilliant. And it's probably really bad for them then as well, because they're thinking I'm not actually on the...
And like Pat Ryan saying, they're getting texts all week going, good for you.
Yeah.
You made the bench. And they have to write back and say, thanks.
Yeah. And 26 players is enough. If you want to take a risk with an injured player or not, you can do that. Like that should be just set in stone. And the other thing is, and Pat Ryan's touching on it, it doesn't matter. Like if Dublin don't name Conor O'Callaghan in their team, what's been said at training on Tuesday and Thursday in the Derry camp?
If he plays, we do this.
Conor O'Callaghan is playing. Lads, stop talking about it. Conor O'Callaghan's playing. Here's what we're doing.
It's real, it's small time. This trend in the GAA of dummy teams, it is small time. It's not high performance.
No. Oh. And look, Armagh are All-Ireland champions for another 23 days.
Are they though?
23 days.
I don't know if you're knocked out.
I don't know.
I'm not sure if you are.
The reigning All-Ireland. Anyway. But I was at the pre-All-Ireland show in the Carrickdale Hotel, and the team was named for the audience that gathered, and Amy Mackin was one of the analysts on stage. And her brother was like somewhat unexpectedly named to start Conor because Peter McGrain had played the whole season. But she was like properly struck, and like imagine he had to like let on for the next few days that actually I'm not playing. But like, I never actually thought of the human element of it. I kind of never really bought into that argument. I'm like, they're all adults, like they can deal with this. But for something like that where your family is processing it in one way and then they see you running out and you're not playing, you can imagine it's tough. But then I tweeted something when this, I think it was during the league or maybe the early rounds of the championship, where there was some particularly egregious examples of this where 8 changes were being made and people were like, it was actually impossible for the commentator to keep abreast of what was going on. And I was like, potentially any changes you make on match day should be deducted from your substitutions, and that would put manners on them. So if you make one change, you're down one sub during the game. And I thought that's reasonable if people want to police this. But then the non-GA following people in my Twitter were like, what other sport do you know 3 days in advance who's playing? Like, just get on with it. Name the team an hour beforehand. People will still buy the programme. you know, it's is it the program that people are really hung up on?
I was thinking Armagh's the only team I would still do it against if I was pulling a stroke, because Ciarán McGeeney's the only manager to seem
He
to
still
run
holds the
with the program. You know, so I would take great satisfaction in seeing him scoring out the names.
I think the program's a consideration.
Yeah, but I think I never like I was looking at it like anything. If you're talking about a GA topic, you're thinking about it through a GA lens more often than not. But it is true that GA journalists have a bit of a luxury that they know the team on a Thursday for a Sunday match.
Rugby teams name it, no problem.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
International rugby, club rugby, they name teams Thursday for a Saturday game.
Yeah, but what is that like? What's the pre-thought there? Is that for a program? Or is it just being nice?
I don't know what the genesis is, but how it manifests in the current era is it's great promotion for the matches, because when a GAA team is named, we don't do a show about it, or it's not a talking point because you can't rely on it. But when the Irish rugby team is named, we would sometimes say for a rugby piece, oh well, let's wait until Thursday after they name the team, then we'll do the rugby pod that day, and it's great publicity for the game. He's in. What about that dropping, etc. Whereas GAA, you wouldn't dream of doing a big piece hanging it on team announcements because you just don't know what they're worth. And no one knew if Con was going to play. Assumption he would. God, he really is injured. So they kind of,
I suppose
they do themselves out of all publicity, good or bad, at all times. GAA folk.
Yeah, but then it is a media consideration ultimately, and I sometimes.
What about the fans? I mean, not to be too twee about this, but like to let the fans know. Well, here's the team, and the Scaries guy is on the bench, and local radio talk about it, and there's excitement, and it's a community kind of based thing. We're naming the team for you, as opposed to these dummy names. To your tweet, and the people responding to it. Increasingly, I'm of the opinion, if you're not going to enforce this, if this is going to continue to be the farce that it is, fine, name them an hour before.
Yeah.
If that's what you want, do it an hour before, and at least then we'll get that moment of excitement of here's the team, and we can talk about it for the hour before. Because I hate the whole parade shenanigans.
Yeah.
If there was an advantage to be gained here, I would be arguing a bit more for managers to do this. It's like, if they were able to pull a stroke and it was affecting the other team, but I just don't think it is. And you'll enjoy this, Joe. Like, I spoke to Stuart Lancaster one time, and and picking his brain. It was we were doing a documentary about something else, and just in between, it's like, Stuart, can I have a quick word? And I was asking him about, because he seems so given with like his knowledge on coaching. I was like, do you ever just feel like you want to keep some of that to yourself and not give away your secrets? And he said, but everybody sees how you're playing. They all analyse, they know how you're playing. Yeah. And then he said something as well that really stuck with me. I find the more I give away, the more I get back.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I can see David Clifford has an injury all week. You name him in the team. You let Barry McCambridge think about him all week. You let Armagh waste precious time on the grass during the week. How do we double team and what do we do? I get that one, but like there are some egregious offenders who just do it no matter what, and it's just so small time.
Yeah.
Pat Ryan,
that is a good point that you made, and again, like I was fairly strident in my perspective. The substitute thing I mentioned, I am a fan of the current format, but it's hard to argue when a soccer fan comes back. It's like, yeah, but like every other, every week we don't know the team until we get there. Yeah. So
but at least they get it an hour before. We're still watching the parade.
But it is an interesting one on like a coach who's coached like a Scary's underage player through to the senior ranks, and all of a sudden they're on the Dublin bench, and you only find out when they're drafted in to the number 23 jersey when they weren't named in the program. Yeah. Like that is unreasonable.
Yeah. Imagine you missed their Dublin debut because no one told you they were actually in, or vice versa. That's Scary's example. Well done, you're on the bench. Good man, brilliant all week. Will we go to the game to see our boy? Let's all go. Yeah. And then you realise him and his community have been sort of just fandangled and used to get like a 30-second one up on the opposition. Go, oh, your man's not there. Well, does that change much for us? Not really. Okay, grand. They digest it pretty quickly. So Pat Ryan, that's the way.
Coming up to Tyrone Carey, was Stephen O'Neill named in that Tyrone All-Ireland final team, or was he literally parachuted in? That felt at the time like Stephen O'Neill, he hadn't played all year, but I actually don't think he was named.
I was
I
convinced.
expect you to have this off the top of your head, and that's why I looked at you.
No, I was convinced Conor McKenna was going to be parachuted in for the 2018 All Ireland. He was still in the AFL
Yeah.
at the time, and I just thought they were going to name him for the final, even though he hadn't been there all year, hadn't even played with Tyrone at that stage.
The best thing of that was like Paul Galvin hadn't played sizable part of that year because of the suspension, and he was back for the All Ireland final. And Tyrone were like, okay, Stephen O'Neill, there you go. We have one too.
Yeah. Just to finish then, Owen Farrell, Gate. I mean, Will Slattery's not impressed in the office.
An Owen goal, would you say?
Wow.
I tell you what, I went straight to listen to that podcast.
Oh, yeah?
Left Wing Emergency Podcast. That's a bit of drama that can get me into the Lions tour.
There's plenty of criticism of it. So, like, Owen Farrell, 3 Lions tours. Now he's one of these very few that's done 4. I think like 6 in history have managed 4. O'Driscoll's obviously one. There's a few Irish,
5 that did 4.
Willie John McBride. It's crazy small numbers who've done 4. So like this is a major kind of Owen Farrell joins super exclusive list.
I think Simon Shaw had the biggest gap between appearances. He was there in 97,
Okay.
and then had this absolutely otherworldly performance in the second test in 09. Do you remember this?
Gives a hug, Shazzy.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's a great interview. Gives a hug. Come on.
That was extraordinary.
Stuart Barnes called it worrying. Strip away the reputation, consider the present, and you're left with one of the most bewildering of selections. He talks about past season impossible to ignore, next to nothing when right in France, the groin injury. I could see a case for him being a backup number 10 had he played any decent rugby this season. On form, the selection is a joke. And I just saw before I came in David Campese writing on Planet Rugby. I've always been respectful of the Farrell name. This, though, is a weak pick by Daddy. And weak is not what I would expect from the Farrells.
Wow.
Oh, nice.
Man of Steel. Weak.
Yikes. A weak pick by Daddy.
I
David Campese.
I think there's a strength in it as well.
Go on then. So I'm not outraged by this.
I love it.
I think
I
there's,
do. I love it. I
Yeah.
love Owen Farrell.
there's an element of, and they were talking about it, Rod and Will were talking about
Oh yeah, I didn't hear that. So what was the gist?
Well, the gist was Will is not happy about it, and he thinks it's sort of not to put words in his mouth, but it makes a joke as a selection process that,
Okay.
obviously he's got no form coming into it, didn't do well in France, hasn't played international rugby since 2023.
Yeah.
And I get all that, obviously defer to people who know way more about rugby than me, but Rod was sort of putting forward the idea as well, and he was in agreement, but he's putting forward the idea that he probably just doesn't trust the other 10s that he has there. And I was thinking, if you're Andy Farrell and Finn Russell gets injured, and in your head you're thinking, right now I actually trust Owen Farrell way more than these boys, but you don't make that call. I think that's weak as well. And if he just goes along with weaker out halves in his head, that he might have to turn to one of them,
Yeah.
and he hasn't made the call, I think he might regret it then.
For fear of being accused of nepotism and
Exactly.
everything else. Yeah, like in many respects, he would know a lot of heat's coming on for this
Yeah.
call. So I sort of agree it's quite a brave call because you're open to ridicule here. And in a way, if something goes wrong, you don't win the test, or there's talk of acrimony behind the scenes because you picked your son, it could become pretty much the most infamous Lions selection in history. You're open to that. But I think I think it is. Finn Russell nearly injured. I presume he's okay last game, but Finn Smith didn't do well against Argentina, as good as he's been for Northampton. Marcus Smith is not the guy. He's still only 33 on Farrell.
What about George Ford?
Yeah, George. If anyone could feel aggrieved, it's George Ford, who had a much better season leading up to this Lions series. George Ford is actually the most, the strongest argument against it. I'd say look, he's 33. I know he didn't do well with Racing, but I've listened to a few people say actually he finished up quite well with Racing. It wasn't like unmitigated disaster. It was injury interrupted and there was a concussion, but actually there were several games towards the back end of the season where he did quite well. And you're not signing this 33-year-old to play an entire season, 45 games for you. It's 3 cup matches. And you think of the experience, the leadership, the rugby IQ, test rugby IQ, which Marcus Smith, Finn Smith wouldn't have anywhere near him. Can you get this guy's body right for 3 games?
Yeah.
And you start. So I can see both sides of it. I guess we don't fully know where his body is, and we will know in due course, and then you'll be much better able to make a decision. You have to presume Andy Farrell has satisfied himself that there's a bit in the tank here physically, that he's, he's fit and you're not carrying injuries, and week or two training, he'll be a nice option,
It was interesting that like they always think Elliot Daly's gone down, who's the fullback and a 13, like more often than not has played a bit in the wing.
Played everywhere, yeah.
Whereas Farrell is none of those things.
No,
he's so like
it's true.
So Owen,
not like for like.
Yeah. So like, and Farrell again, to Colin's point and yours, knows that. Like that's going to be an obvious question. This is not a like for like switch. So, but I think he kind of intimated that Elliot Daly's experience is a loss as well, not just his positional know-how. That Farrell's the only one, certainly the only one in the squad now who's won a Lions test. Yeah. And Elliot Daly played in New Zealand, which was a successful tour for the Lions, if not a winning one. So like there is something to be said for that little bit of know-how as well. I think they love Finn Russell. Like if Finn Russell's fit and flying, he probably won't even come off in these games.
Correct.
So if you're telling me that Finn Russell picks up a little knock, a little twinge, and has to come off for the last 6 minutes, and Owen Farrell's requirements, despite his tackling not being,
well, he's been to tackle
lauded
school. He's been to tackle
a few
school
times.
Yeah,
he's repeated. If you're telling me he has to stand up, like make some big line, like some blocks on the line, and kick a goal, and that's what you want Owen Farrell to do.
See out a game.
I think there's very few you would actually bang on more than him.
He's one of the greatest players of his generation.
Problem is, if he's the alternate 10 in the squad and Finn Russell goes down after 6 minutes, and you want Owen Farrell to win that game for you,
then he better
that's
be
a big
right.
ask.
Yeah, he better be right then, or Andy will get it from everyone. So that's the gamble. But he knows more than we do about Farrell's body, his son's body.
Rod made the point as well that he's also the biggest personality now coming in, like
by far,
biggest star, which does impact obviously the dynamics. The media is going to be all about him.
He's a very popular teammate though. Like he's by all accounts a great guy. This isn't a kind of he's a bit Marmite going into that team. But I know the English fans have their beef with him, which is bizarre. But I think as a teammate, he's generally loved across the board.
And why were England fans booing him? Like, what's that?
Bananas. I don't know. Genuinely, absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts. By the way, it's worth reminding everybody that before the Lions squad was picked, there were a lot of people, former players, journalists, saying that Owen Farrell could and even potentially should be the starting number 10. An awful lot of people saying they'd have him ahead of Russell,
Johnny
test match
Sexton's
animal. I'd say Sexton. Yeah. Andy was like, I'm thinking of calling in Owen. What do you think? Johnny, yes. So it's a big turnabout now from a month ago, people saying he could be the starting 10 to how can he be in the squad? I can see how he's in the squad.
But like as Colin's saying there, personality-wise, it's not even about him being divisive. It's just that he's vocal. Like I don't even need to reference the clip, the Paul O'Connell one, but like whatever age he was then, early 20s, like marching that team around the pitch.
2013, yeah.
Like there's very few in that team who have that sort of demeanour. I think it could be, people actually don't know how this series is going to go. I think from a further remove, there was a sense the Lions are going to win this easy. I think the closer it gets, less the case. So if it gets into the nitty gritty, I think having an Owen Farrell type in the playing group is no harm. They're not short of it in the coaching staff.
Yeah.
But I think having them around the place, if that all it ultimately amounts to, I think I don't see any problem with it.
He's 33, not 38.
Do you think that's the main part of it though? Like the Sexton, Andy Farrell are looking at the group and seeing that there's probably a lack of leaders. I heard yourself and Will talking about Maro Itoje. Well, mostly Will was saying he wasn't impressed with the clip that went out. Like is there a bit of that where it's I know somebody who can light a fire under these.
It takes all types, doesn't it? I think leadership wise, I think Itoje has his own style of leadership. I see Tyke Byrne is captaining the team this weekend, like different type of leader again. Owen Farrell is more like your, classic leader type.
All-American.
Yeah. So, that is pretty much us done, fellas. So, weekend, and we'll talk. I'm off Monday. So, I'll see you when I see you.
Tuesday.
Yeah. that would follow. Yeah. Colin Doherty, thank you. You'll be taking people through the hurling on Monday.
Can't wait.
Will be across the rugby. Ronan will be here pulling the strings. Ronan,
how was it, Joe? How was
it? It was nice. To be fair, There were some heavy topics. You weren't dealt the kindest of Friday bits and bobs hands as a return, but I thought your usual self.
That's good.
That might be a good thing.
See what the Twitter mafia say to me.
Okay. No, you're very welcome back.
Cheers.
That's your annual leave used up now until 2026.
I have another few.
You couldn't.
I do.
You do not.
I haven't been away in a non-work
Oh,
capacity.
stop.
This is my only break so far.
What?
It was a month.
A month.
June 13th.
This is you've fandangled something. That's twice I've used that word, and I only used it before for a year.
Nice.
Fandangled.
Will's not here to tell me if
I probably
correct use.
The incorrect use of fandangle. Alrighty, we'll talk to you next week, everyone. Cheers.